Gonna start. Okay, so welcome to Evidence-Based Audio Engineering and Education number 126, and this is Dork tuning. And if you're one of these dorks, you deserve it. So, Instagram, TikTok, sorry, I still can't get the computer screen on here, but today there's really not anything you're going to be seeing anyway. I just got the Reaper screen going because there's really not all that much to it. Okay, so first ugliness I wanted to talk about today. Actually, I'm going to pull this up on the screen. Is this. I was installing something. I think it was one of these Line 6 apps. I'll talk a little bit more about that in a little bit. But I get a pop-up from Windows as I'm installing it. The app, and it gives you a picture in this whole dorky, hipster virtue signaling looking nonsense. Looks like an apple. It says the app you're trying to install isn't a Microsoft verified app. Installing apps from the store helps protect your PC and keep it running smoothly. So there's a button for get the apps from the store. And originally there wasn't even an install anyway. So this is one of those shields, kind of like Apple has. I mean, if you want an Apple, if you want the hyper paranoia and that sort of system, go ahead. But we bought Windows for a reason. We want to be in control of what's happening on our computers. And I mean, this is, how many shows do we actually have about this where people can't install things on Apple because of stuff like this? In this case, I was able to go to settings and find a way to install it anyway. Thankfully, right there, change my app recommendation settings. And I was able to get the button on that says install anyway. There's actually a way to completely turn it off, thankfully. But it's not cool that it's there anyway. This is typical like Apple crap. We don't want the Apple crap. We're not running Apple for a reason. It's bad on Apple. This is something hopefully they're going to fix. But I was warned a ways back. Thanks, Tim. Tim Gray, who was on the show before. He was saying, just wait, Microsoft will get there. And I was like, nah. But no, he was right. So we're on our way there. He's saying that Windows 11 is probably going to be a lot like this hyper-restrictive, hyper-paranoid Mac stuff. So this sucks. And hopefully this isn't going to keep you from being able to run free plugins and things like that back in the day. It destroyed so many people's mixes and work. They're not able to pull up old projects and stuff on Apple because of this nonsense. And I hope it doesn't happen with Windows. So another thing that I'd like to see, when you install, or actually let's say I had like a pod, if you have your pod plugged in that is also an interface and you have the USB on and you flip it on, Windows automatically switches your Windows output or Windows default device to that new audio interface. That sucks. I'd love to see that go away. I mean, that is a huge problem. It's kind of a nightmare. I have things set up a certain way in my studio, and I don't want that to change. And unfortunately, in the case of one of these devices that I have, I think it does its MIDI over USB using that, because you can disable the driver, and then you can flip it on or off all you want, and it's not going to change anything. But ideally, you don't have to do that. I mean, that just sucks. If anybody knows, is there a way to completely disable that from happening? I know I asked it in the Reaper forum. I asked it all over Facebook. Nobody knew, but usually the Reaper guys know before anybody else. So let's see. Reaper compatibility. No answers yet. Had some views, though. I just asked, is there any way to keep Windows from switching sound cards or interfaces when you plug a USB interface in? I just want it to keep using the one that I have. In this case, I want my RME to stay as the default Windows device, even though I turned on or off my Helix. And we're going to talk about that in a second. Without disabling the actual driver, hopefully, as I think it controls the MIDI I/O. So yes, you could do it by disabling the driver in Device Manager, but I'd rather you didn't have to do that. So hopefully somebody's going to chime in and have a way around that, because that sucks. I mean, it's just another one of those things that just makes everything hard to deal with. Let's see what else we have here. Yeah, you could type straight in the chat if you want. Okay. One of the other things I did is installed the Helix native software, which is pretty neat. Apparently, you can copy your presets from Helix native to your actual Helix units, and you can put it in hardware compatibility mode for different versions. I guess there's a whole Helix family. It's like the HX Stomp and the HX Effects, and then the Helix Floor and LT and Rack and all that stuff. But also, Helix Native seems to be a pretty cool software, so I really wanted to use it. I bought it, ran fine on the computer here at the school. I went to run it at home, and it wouldn't run. It gave me this blank screen, and I Googled it and found zillions of posts about it, going back quite a while. And if you guys know anything about Line 6, they do a lot of really cool, innovative stuff, but then they also do a lot of abandonware. And not that Helix Native is abandonware, which is surprising because this is actually kind of older stuff at this point. But they've been, back in February, I think they put up an update. But this particular problem's been going on for a while, and it seems to be people who have SSD drives, but there's other things that can happen. And sadly, I mean, my choice to, I can get a crack that runs. I paid for the stuff. I shouldn't have to run a crack. And one of the things about this particular crack is that it shuts off going to line 6 from your host file on Windows, which I don't want to happen, because I think HX Edit needs that in order to run. But this whole thing about needing to connect to the internet to run every single time, that sucks. Maybe once. Our company, we mean to do a one challenge response on the internet, and that's it. It shouldn't disconnect after that. I mean, it may, but hopefully it doesn't. That's how our software is supposed to work. If you'd ever had internet in your life, you'd still be able to run it after you authorized it that first time. Things like Reaper, you could do it without ever getting on the internet. So this sucks. If I take the Helix home and have to run it on that computer, am I still going to be able to run HX Edit if I do this crack that messes with the host file? How about you just fix it? Line 6, I can talk to you. If you guys will answer me, we can work this out. I'm sure we can figure out together how to make these things work so you don't see another pile of these things in the forum. So if you guys have another solution for the Helix Native blank screen problem, let me know, because this sucks. Otherwise, I'm going to have to use that crack, and I really don't want to. So on that vein, I got a Helix floor. So you guys, for once, you guys on Instagram and TikTok, you see, oh God, this thing kind of heavy. I actually went and got this thing for a variety of reasons. So I actually own one now, and it's just kind of crazy because didn't these come out in like 2016 or something like that, and they're still relevant 5 years later? That's kind of nuts for a digital device, especially for audio. Not that those 80s reverbs and stuff, they're still good. The Eventide H3000 is still a good model, but for the most part, digital audio stuff it gets a little bit obsolete kind of quickly. One of the crazy things is the street prices went up. But of course, all gear prices went nuts during the Backstreet Boys reunion tour. Control seems really comprehensive. This didn't get... A lot of times, Line 6 stuff gets nerfed. And like I say, lots of times Line 6 stuff gets abandonware, right? It really does. Like, they're notorious for destroying perfectly good gear and just not keeping up with it. But this one, it looks like you can do a lot of... They have something called the Command Center for Helix, which allegedly lets you use that control surface as a MIDI controller. So I might be taking my FCB 1010 out of, it's sitting under my desk all the time. That might be leaving. I might be able to control everything on Reaper the same way I do with this Helix. I don't know that I want to leave it on all the time like that, but maybe. I mean, I got the warranty on it. We'll see. But again, this is the problem. This is the one that keeps switching the interfaces on me. So I got to figure out how to keep that from happening, unfortunately. Because it does have its own audio interface built in. And so when I flip it on, if the USB is connected, which I need it for the editor, and I didn't disable the audio interface in Device Manager, then it pops up and changes the sound card audio interface on me every time. So I got to figure out a way to keep that from happening. So like I said, they updated it in February. So it's not the typical Line 6 abandonware like Firehawk and Amplify. They've actually added a lot to it since it first came out. It's on version 3.11 of the software, I think. I mean, it looks good, but honestly, for everything that I'd ever need to do, I could probably use a Pod Go. But I did get it so that we could see if the kids could use it for their as the pod goes, because it has all the same DSP in it. I figure I'll get it all figured out and see if the Pod Go can actually run that much. Unfortunately, the Pod Go's editor will not work in an offline mode, so I can't tell for sure without actually owning one if the thing's going to work, which is ridiculous. But one of the things was, and the reason this one's called Dork Tuning, is that some of these kids play in other tunings. And I've noticed people with Digitech drop pedals able to just get away with that. They'll just tune their guitar standard, or they'll tune it to whatever they tune to, and then they'll play it in the other. They'll use the drop pedal to handle that. But there is a polyphonic pitch shifter, which is allegedly what the Digitech drop is, and I guess we could get way into what that might possibly mean. As a polyphonic pitch shifter, really, it should be detecting 6 or whatever different notes at the same time, which kind of like what Melodyne DNA does, and then pitch shift them all separately. But there's a chance that the regular pitch shifter can just do it all anyway, and I'm gonna see what that's like, because the polyphonic pitch shifter eats a ton of the DSP, even on the Helix. Like, you can't run much else besides that, and that seems kind of wrong 5 years later on. I wonder if either you need better optimization, or it's just not enough DSP in there. And I don't think there's really a way to upgrade the DSP in these things. There might be. They might figure out something. We'll see. But that's my hope, is that I can get all the kids onto Pod Go's, because they're relatively cheap, but they seem to be able to do the dual path thing with one output able to go into a guitar amp with no speaker simulator on it, and the other outputs go out to some PA speakers with speaker simulators on. So it really handles everything. So as long as the drop tuner could work, and then the main thing that I want those things for, aside from that, of course, is demudding the signal, giving them a consistent sound that they quit messing with. So they got the clean sound, they got their distorted sound, they can handle it all. Give them a monitor, give the PA guy something else. We'll see. I'm a little concerned where the volume knob is. If I'd like that just to be a consistent out where the volume knob doesn't mess with them at all, but I'm gonna test all that. But the state of things is kind of crazy. The Neural Cortex, the Neural DSP Cortex thing, it's pretty new, came out last year or whatever, but it's not as all-in-one as the regular pod interfaces are, or this Helix or whatever. You can plug an expression pedal into it, but it doesn't have one on the unit, so it's just one more thing to plug in. I think Axe Effects stopped making their floor model. The Kemper profiling floor model, I don't know actually if it's a profiler, but the Kemper one, that's the floor, it's still the same one they've been selling for years, just like the Helix. But they had a really recent software update. I think it was actually in July, so good on them. Doesn't sound like abandonware to me. you'd expect a lot of it's obsolete by now. But again, like my Behringer FCB 1010 pedal, I think that thing was made in the 90s. That's still kind of the MIDI controller to have, right? Which is weird. So I want to talk a little bit about why I call this dork tuning. This is when you're a new band and you tune. In most of the cases, these idiots. Here, let's say it nicer. In most cases, these guys think it makes them sound heavier or whatever by tuning a half step down. You're not sounding heavier tuning a half step down. You want to tune a lot down, but you know, it's kind of a silly thing anyway. But my real problem with this is you're attaching an anchor to your band that's going to hold them down for no reason right when you're starting out. Music success, it's all about opportunity. And as much as the people always say about being in the right place at the right time, it really is. And usually it's luck. But the thing is, you make your own luck. If you're always at shows and ready to play when some band flakes out or something, you're in luck. You know, you could call that luck that they flaked out. But the thing is you were there at the right time. They just happened to not show up. You had your instruments. You were ready to go. That's opportunity. And it's all kinds of little things like that. You make your own opportunities. So in the case of not being able to play other people's gear, or, you know, having to carry way too many extra guitars because you can't just get one off the shelf because you're playing in some weird tuning, you are creating opportunity cost where you're going to lose out on some things that could have happened. And, you know, this is because of reading, like back in the day, it was because you're reading dumb magazines like Guitar, whatever, World, Teen Bopper magazine or whatever. And they would always claim all these dumb things, you know. Often people would tune down half a step as huge, already established bands because the singers were getting a little bit wiped out and doesn't want to have to sing as high that night. Fine. But these are established bands. They got their own guitar techs. They got all the guitars in the world that can keep switching between. That's not you just starting out right now. If you get a chance to jump on stage and you have to play somebody else's instruments and they're tuned regular, like most of them are going to be, are you going to be messed up because of that? So it's an opportunity cost. And half the time those magazines were lying anyway. I can't count the number of times where I read in some magazine about a band that had recorded at my studio and allegedly they were in there. Yeah, sorry, I'm gonna out you guys, but I'm not gonna name any names, okay? We didn't use any headphones. We just all played together in the same room. There were no overdubs. Bull. Man, all that stuff was all multi-tracked as multi-track gets. Sometimes there would be like an initial tracking where they'd all kind of play together, but we replaced all that stuff. Get out of here with that. Most of the time. There actually were some cases, but those kind of guys never seem to be in those Teen Bop magazines anyway. So most of the time, the stuff you guys are basing your problems on are just myths, and you're just making it so that when that opportunity does come, you're going to lose out on it. Just tune standard or something. If you want to sound heavier, get a 7-string. You know, when you're an established band with your own guitar techs and all that, you know, go nuts. But there's just way too much opportunity cost with goofy tunings when you're a brand new band. And so, you know, this is one of the big reasons I'm thinking of getting all the kids these Pod Go's. Why I got the Helix. Because maybe they can use a Digitech drop and they can still do that stuff. And if their guitars are tuned goofy, they can swap them out. But again, you know, I don't want them to have to carry around a piece of technology that is going to fix that for them. Just fix it at the source. And then, you know, but also I want to get control over some mud and their levels and everything. I want them to be consistent. Just pop up, plug in, and play, you know, rather than dork around with amps all day long. And let's be honest. You're not going to get heavy from tuning half a step down. You want to get heavy, go get a 7-string or an 8-string or a 9-string or whatever. So you're way down there. Just tuning half a step down it's all downsides and really no upside. You know, like I said, you gotta go get a 7-string. You know. And then, on a related note, as I've said a million times, and this has a huge opportunity cost with it. So, guys, really, always saying this: tune. Make sure your instrument's in tune. Make sure your instrument's intonated. But it's not just about tuning, though. Get in tune, and half the time you guys aren't in tune. Make sure your instrument's in tune. If that's a fully floating Floyd or Kaler, you got to think about some stuff, but it's still possible. Lately, I've been forcing myself to play. Two of my guitars are fully floating Floyds right now. Oh, some alliteration, right? And I'm forcing myself to figure out how to keep those things in tune, and I'm doing it. So it's possible, but think about it. You got to be in tune. You got to have the intonation right. But then it's not just that. And remember, we've talked many times how I've seen people lose opportunities by not being in tune. But it's not just being in tune. You have to play in tune. These banana fingers. So you guys on Instagram and TikTok. Let's see. Let me just grab a guitar here. So when you got your fingertips on the strings, right? When you play these banana fingers, where your knuckle or whatever, your joint goes backwards, that is very likely, look at my ring finger here, I don't know how well you can see that, but you have a very good chance when you're doing your chords, when you're doing banana fingers, to just push it out of tune like that. You see that? Put your fingertips down there and know where your strings are. Get used to playing chords by themselves so you can check with the tuner and look whether or not you're bending them out of tune. Get your bends in tune, right? And then it's not just tune. You got to play in key. All your whatever, your improvisation, get them in key. You've got to be in tune. You got to be in key. Whether or not your audience actually could tell you, oh, you're out of tune or you're playing out of key, it's not that important, and it's not important to them. What it is they hear it. They know something's wrong. They don't know how to say what's wrong, but they hear it as wrong. And there's an opportunity cost again. They're just not going to have you on again because, there's something wrong with that band. They don't know what's wrong with that band, but they know something was wrong. For you recording guys, it's a lot like mastering. When you hear a really well-mastered album versus the mix that got sent to the mastering engineer, the end user's probably not going to be able to tell what's different about it, but it's going to sound different to them, and it's going to sound different enough to them, or it should. So make sure you're playing in tune. Make sure you're playing in key. It's probably more important than playing in time, honestly. Being out of key, being out of tune, it just makes you sound like a clown. It's unreal. Part of this means that if you're playing like a Floyd Rose or something with a lock nut or whatever, this means you better be able to get to everything you need to tune your guitar within about 10 seconds, 15 seconds. Your Allen wrenches, I keep them on the... Sorry, I'm going to do this again. Sorry, guys, on YouTube and stuff, you can't see this, but the back of my guitars here, you see, I have Allen wrenches. Or in this case, this is like a magnetic Allen wrench just for the lock nuts. Oh, there it goes, and they're falling on the ground. My other guitars, I have these other... actually, this is probably the wrong kind of thing I should use. Let me pull up another guitar, sorry. Oh, in this case, you guys see these Allen wrenches right here. It's just a little magnetic thing. Has the intonation Allen wrench, which, you're not going to need that much, but your regular Allen wrench for your locking nut or for your string. So if you pop a string or whatever, you got everything ready to go on your guitar all the time. Don't have this sitting in your case where you can't get to it. Who knows where your case is? Could be a dark stage. You better be able to grab that. And, if you probably should have a second guitar on stage too. This is so important. You want to wait for somebody to change their string while they're supposed to be playing. So make sure you have whatever you need for your tuning. Some of your strings, you might need to clip off the end of it. So that probably means you need a string cutter with you too. Hopefully you're using something like a Helix or a Podgo or some of these modern amps that have tuners on them already. Don't count on being able to use a clip-on tuner in stage, okay? There may be way too much stage volume for that to happen. And make sure you're plugged into something that you can tune with. It is really important. But like I said, so that's probably why I really want to get the kids on Pod Goes or something like that. And I hate to really be pushing a single specific product, but this really looks like kind of the best idea for what they're doing. You forget all that vintage nonsense if you can get away with not having a giant pedal board with all cables running all over the place and noisy and everything. So today, in other news, I'll be testing in just a little while here, but we have a new version of multiband gate, and it's got a transient detector, or it's got a transient shaper to really help with the detector. Steeper filters, kind of overall new look. That should be coming out to everybody pretty quick here. I'm going to be testing the new versions of, actually more like an alpha of Intuition. Most of the knobs aren't working, but the whole compressor part of it is. And the scope is getting way more functional. It's actually, at the beginning when we were making that compressor, I really wanted it to be an oscilloscope that you could use for other things rather than just a compressor. But you could actually measure and show waveforms. Like, it's so hard to communicate how the waveforms are. So I really wanted an oscilloscope. And we're going to be able to move the horizontal and the vertical of the pre and post, so you can really get a good idea of what's going on. There's a lot more to do on Intuition, but I should be testing out an alpha today. If you want to try it out, let me know. I'm going to have alphas of the next version of Drum EQ out right now, and there's a new version of Dynamic EQ, should be a little bit more efficient. So our plugins are coming a long way in the next couple weeks, so keep an eye out. If you're already an owner of these things, let me know if you want to test them, or if you're just crazy enough to want to test them in general, let me know. We'll... sine waves. I'll be, let me know if you want to try these. Let's see. And then, okay, so another one. I've been doing these, we were doing our Friday shows again, and I've been doing it mostly with the XR18, a set of Alto TS312s and an Alto sub, and then I'm using the cheaper Alto TX series 10s as monitors, and so far it's been pretty good. We did mic the drums last night, at least the kick and the snare, and that ended up working good. We were scratching our heads for forever trying to figure out how to send effects 2 to the second effects unit of the Behringer XR18, and how to get it back out to bus 1. I still don't know. Does effects 1 automatically send to rack 1 and effects 2 automatically sends to rack 2, and there's no changing that? And then getting it back to bus 1, man, I was having a tricky time. And in fact, I want to have 5 and 6 come out so I can do our live stream. So I'm not sure how I can mirror the master on that. It might still not work because of, we have some stage volume issues, which is another thing. You guitar players, man, try and get your stage volume down. You're pointing your guitar amp. If you need to hear it, point it at you. Don't point it at the audience if you can help it. Some shows your guitar amp is what the audience hears. Like there's not going to be mic'd up or sent to a line input or something. Fine, you figure out what you can do about stage volume. But what we keep having trouble with guitar players is just insane stage volumes for them that's bleeding into all the mics, just like it always is, right? Find a way to use that amp as your own monitor, point it at you, and or just, if you trust the monitor mixer enough, just use what comes through the monitor. I wouldn't. I would still have some kind of monitor for you. But get that stage volume down, because you are wrecking the show for everybody else. Hopefully today I'm going to try out the TS210, which is what I've been using as an FR, versus that new TX210, because those things are like half the price or something like that. They're way cheaper. And it says 300 watts instead of 2,000 watts or 1,000 watts or whatever it is. But, who knows? It might be just fine. And so let's see, what else? I think that's it for this week. I'm actually doing a lot of live-oriented stuff. So, yeah, you're gonna make a kickstand for your cab. Do it. That's important. But, I wonder if this, with the whole world going to FRFRs, I figure we're probably all going to start sticking FRFRs on stands and just pointing them right at the guitar player. Because, I wouldn't, unless I'm in a huge band, I'm not necessarily going to trust the monitor mixer for my guitar sound. So I'm putting it on something too. So I'm going to see, though, if that TX210 is loud enough, holy crap, man, that just brought the price of FRFR way down. So, that's it for this week. If you're on Oahu right now, the Bike Factory Ride Out is today. They're giving away prizes at like 4:30, so I'd get there early if you want to go. I'm probably gonna be there at 5, and I'll see you guys tonight if you're there, or next week if you're not. After this show, like I said, the after show is gonna be actually testing out the new builds of the plugins. So if you guys wanna, next thing that comes up. There'll be an announcement. I actually have a little bit of stuff to do right before then, but check it out. And if you want to test the new stuff, let me know. Then I'll see you guys next week. And so, goodbye. And video. Goodbye, TikTok. I don't know how I do that. Is that this button here? Nope. This power button. There we go. See you guys later. And see you Twitch, YouTube, and Facebook. Like I said, I'll be back on in a little bit to test the gear, test the new plugin. So I'll see you.